Hello and welcome back to the Spicy Pisces podcast. I'm your host, Emma Jepson, and I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining me today. This is officially, I believe, the 6th episode, so that's exciting to see that we already have some growth. But I will say it's weird listening back to myself talk, and everyone always says it's weird listening to a recording of your voice, but I had no idea. Like, people said I spoke softly, but it's just funny listening back, and now I kind of understand what they say, or what they mean when they say that, and I don't know. It's just funny to listen to my own voice, but I'm getting used to it now. It was weird in the beginning, but anyways, super excited for today's topic. We're going to be talking about something that affects so many of us, and that is extremely normalized and almost glamorized today, but it's actually really toxic, and this is the quote-unquote going out cycle. I'm not even sure if this is a real term or not, but this is just what we're going to call it for the sake of this episode. But I did post a dump earlier today talking about this topic, and I listed a few points, but I really wanted to make a podcast episode dedicated towards it because I think we can go into a lot more depth about a lot of these points, and it's a really important topic to talk about because not enough people discuss it, but it affects so many people. And I also think not enough people feel comfortable expressing the negative toll that this cycle takes on them because we think it's just how things are supposed to go, and it's just normal to feel this way and behave this way and have these habits when you're planning on going out. And you shouldn't be engaging in any habits that are making you unhappy. And that's going to be the whole basis of this episode. In the end, I'll go into more depth about this, but you don't need to behave this way. You don't need to continue with these habits if they're making you unhappy. And that's something I've finally learned. And now when I go out, I purely just focus on having fun, meeting new people, having fun with my, friends I plan on going out with, just being kind of spontaneous and just having a fun time instead of hyper fixating on my appearance and the way I look and the food I'm consuming and just being inside my head all the time about this stuff. So when I came up with this concept of the going out cycle, I listed 5 points. And for me, and for a lot of other people I've spoken to, it often starts with someone says, let's go out tonight. And your first thought typically is to restrict your food intake for the rest of the day to avoid bloating later. And you want to feel as small as possible when you go out. So you try to restrict your food intake so that that doesn't happen to you later on, which is really, really bad. And I used to do this a lot where I wouldn't eat enough before going out, and then I get super lightheaded, I get sick, I drink too much, and you just feel kind of faint, and it's not a good night, and you feel like horrible the next day because you're not properly taking care of yourself and feeling yourself. And you shouldn't be drinking on an empty stomach, and you should be feeling yourself properly beforehand. And with some of my old friends and roommates, there was the whole judgment over someone who chose to eat something when the majority of you weren't going to, because you were like, why would I eat something that's just going to make me look bloated and not feel confident in how I look? And now I've met some really cool people who we all get dinner beforehand, we'll make some pasta together, we make sure we're fueled properly, and that we're not starting or going out on an empty stomach, because that's not healthy for you mentally, physically, and you're going to feel like shit. And food shouldn't be seen as something that you manipulate to change the way you look, or you're going to punish yourself by not eating as much because you want to look a certain way when you go out or feel a certain way. And that just perpetuates the whole disordered eating mentality, and that's going to counter the process of recovery and changing the way you think about food. Another issue that I have with this is that so many people glamorize not eating, eating disorders, disordered eating culture, when really there's nothing glamorous about starving yourself and being faint and being to the point where you're seeing, spots or stars, or forcing yourself to throw up because you want to rid yourself of the food in your stomach that you feel guilty about eating, or you're so hangry because you haven't eaten all day because you've been fasting because you want to feel light or not bloated when you go out. And there's truly nothing glamorous about any of this, and you're allowed to eat how you normally would throughout the day. You don't need to change anything. You're allowed to eat dinner snacks before you go out, whatever you're craving, or, if you're hungry, honor those cravings and hunger cues. So the second part of the cycle is when you actually start getting ready and you're just picking apart your appearance in the mirror because you hate the way your body looks and everything you try on. I remember as a teenager that I rarely wore tight-fitting clothing because I didn't like the way my body looked in it, and I didn't think I had a quote-unquote flat enough stomach or a cinched enough waist or long enough lean legs to pull off a certain look. And if I did wear something a little bit showier, I'd be incredibly uncomfortable the whole time because I thought all of my insecurities would be showing. So any stretch marks or cellulite or the parts of my body that I didn't necessarily love. And also with some old roommates, when we were getting ready together, we'd just both, or all of us, would be constantly body checking ourselves in the mirror and kind of sticking out your stomach and patting it a little bit. And you joke about it, but it's not something you should be joking about. And it's when people joke about it, it comes across as being a lighthearted joke, but really in your own mind and in your emotionally, you're so tied to it. It's something that's so serious. And, it goes a lot deeper than people just make it out to seem when they kind of make a joke about something like that. And it's just really triggering, and I don't like being around people like that anymore. Then you're all just constantly looking in the mirror, doing your makeup or whatever, and you're I don't like this about myself, I don't like that, oh, I hate the way I look like this. And it's just so mentally draining and toxic, and you don't need to be engaging in mindsets like that. You can just be hyping yourself up, and you don't need to be constantly tearing yourself down or pinpointing all the parts that you don't necessarily love about yourself. And it's entirely okay to not completely love everything about yourself, because that's a really hard thing to do. And the whole concept of just love your body for the way it is, just living in this day and age with how prevalent diet culture is and the beauty standards in the beauty industry, it's hard to love everything about yourself all the time. And I think that's fair to not always be obsessed with everything about yourself. And it's okay to still have parts of yourself that you're not a huge fan of. And I think that's okay. But it's all about how you talk about it and how you don't need to make them seem like this huge, you don't need to over fixate on them, you don't have to give it that much power, because the reality is you're so much more than your body, and there's so much more to life than the way you look, and your body is not meant to be perfect, and it is not your sole purpose in life to make everything you do about fitting these unattainable beauty standards. There's so much more to life than that. And also, going along with this, the whole concept of trending body types and trending styles. When you go out, wear whatever you feel most comfortable and confident in. It doesn't need to be what's trending at the moment or what fits on the trending body or what the beauty industry tells you should be wearing to feel hot and attractive and confident in yourself. Everyone's so different. Not everyone has the same taste and style, feels confident and most comfortable in the same thing. So you need to wear what works for you. And this is something that's taken me a while to learn, because online, whatever's trending at the moment, and maybe it doesn't fit on you the way it does the body at that moment in time that it's meant for. And then you feel kind of shitty about yourself because you're oh, I can't pull this off. Because the whole concept of being trendy then, right? You want to feel like you're being included and you're in and you're being accepted because you're wearing what everyone else thinks is cool. People see you and, they're paying attention to you and noticing you and stuff. And I think just reminding yourself that you don't need to give in to that culture. You wear what works for you. And if it's completely different than what is trending at the moment, that's totally okay, because again, you need to wear what makes you feel most comfortable and confident, and it's okay to be different. It's okay to not align with the mainstream culture with style and other things. That's taken me a while to learn as well, that it's okay to be more authentic to yourself and not go along with what everyone else is doing. And that's a whole nother topic we could talk about in another episode as well. But I guess with this whole point, it's you just have to wear what makes you feel most comfortable and confident. And maybe it's even something that the beauty industry says you shouldn't be wearing because you don't look the certain way and maybe your stomach isn't flat enough to pull this off. if you feel comfortable wearing something that shows off, a part of your body that you've been told to hide your whole life and you've been told not to be proud of and confident in, like, go for it, wear it, do what works for you. Stop caring what other people think, what other people have to say. Like, do what makes you feel confident and happy and comfortable and attractive and hot. And just, it takes a while to figure that out for yourself, but play around with things and see what works for you. So the third point is when you finally go out, but you spend the entire evening hyperfixating on your appearance and comparing yourself and how you look to other people who you're also around. And this comes from, personally, the concept of validation from other people. And when you're out, and I think this might even be the next episode I do, but at least being in college right now, the whole concept of frat culture, and this is also similar when you go to clubs and bars and you're out in public and going out at night, but you see how certain people receive more attention than others, and maybe that you're getting, and you think it has something to do with the way you look, or there's something wrong with you because you're not receiving as much attention, and take it really personally then when maybe one of your friends, someone comes up to them and not you, or you're talking to a group of people and they only talk to certain people in the group, or they kind of disregard you, or don't show you the same amount of attention as they would someone else. And that's hard not to take that personally, because that's just like a lack of respect, and it's just so rude in general. I hate when people do that, and I'll be talking about that in the next episode with the frat culture, because I've sworn off of going to them because they're just so degrading, but become so toxic then because you're constantly comparing yourself to all the other girls or other people in the environment where you are, and you almost start like picking apart, you start objectifying like other people essentially. And it brings in this whole concept of, because she's so pretty or because she looks this way, I'm ugly or I'm unattractive or I'm undesired, which is so false. I mean, everyone has different preferences. Everyone looks totally different. Everyone has different things that they find attractive. And just because someone doesn't find you attractive doesn't make you ugly. And that's something I've learned. And also, there's so much more than just the way you look, but this whole culture of going out has made it seem, and especially social media too, that just perpetuates this whole thing. And I'll do a whole episode on social media because I despise it so much. And it's this like alternate reality where you think your appearance is the only thing that matters in life and how people perceive you, but there's so much more to that. And it's such a superficial way to live and go about your life, because the reality is life is not a highlight reel. There's shitty moments. There's things you go through where you need real supportive people to help you through it. And you have like real meaningful conversations with people, and they make you understand that your appearance is so trivial in the grand scheme of life. And your appearance is not like you. There's so much more to you than the way you look. But I feel like when you go out, it's like this alternate reality where that kind of goes away. And it's just the whole like social media, right? Like it's just the way you look. That's all that matters when you go out, or that's just at least what a lot of people tend to focus on, especially in high school and college when you're still trying to figure out who you are, what you value, set boundaries, set standards for yourself in relationships. Often when you go out, and especially with a lot of my friends in the past, the main goal when you go out is trying to find someone to either like make out with or go back to someone's apartment with or hook up with. And that's the main goal for the night. And if someone doesn't come up to you and approach you, then it's almost like you failed and you did something wrong. I just think that's really a really horrible way to live, because you shouldn't be basing how successful the night was or how much fun you have on someone else's behavior and how they act, because that's out of your control, and usually you're going to be left disappointed. And you're putting these expectations onto someone else. Like, you have the control on how much fun you have. You get to set the guidelines. You get to decide how the night's going to go. Like, don't give that control to someone else. You're not going to be left feeling satisfied. And now most things, if I am planning on going out, I don't set any expectations, because that way there's no possibility of them falling short. And also because then you never know how it's going to go. And it's usually more of a fun and spontaneous night. And if you don't set any of these rules for yourself where you need to like have someone by the end of the night. You just focus on having fun and doing your own thing then. You're not so hyper fixated on how other people behave and act, and you're just more focused on yourself and doing your own thing, and you don't need to seek validation from other people, and you don't need them to pay you any attention because you're just focused on yourself and doing your own thing. And you're showing yourself all of your attention, and that's what I focus on when going out now, and just simply having fun and just enjoying the people I'm with and wherever we go. Like, that's my main focus now, instead of other people and putting it in how the night goes into other people's hands. Like, it's all in my hands and in my control. And you're also not letting someone else determine your worth or your value, and you're putting yourself first and letting yourself have fun and making that the focus. I guess going off of the original point, that I just focus less on the way I looked and comparing myself to other people, and I just simply focus on having a good time and enjoying myself, because I know that there's so much more to life than focusing on my appearance, and that having fun and enjoying life is so much more important than fixating on your appearance, even though diet culture and the beauty industry may say otherwise, because that's not all there is to life. Everything that they promote, there's so much more to it than that. The fourth point is that the following day you tend to restrict in order to compensate for everything you ate and drank the night before, and you may also excessively work out to quote-unquote burn off the late-night pizza run or McDonald's or dumplings that you and your friends ordered or went out to get. I would always feel so shitty with myself afterwards, because whenever I hung out with my friends and we were like late at night and we were having fun and stuff, we typically order some pizza or food that was quote-unquote unhealthier, and I would eat it in the moment, because in that moment you're typically like having fun and you're vibing with whatever's going on, and everyone's kind of getting the food too. So I would almost have my binging episodes then as well, because my guard would be down a little bit and I'm like, well, everyone else is doing it, so it's okay, or I'm a little buzzed, so whatever, like, it's fun. And this would be one of the few times I'd let myself actually eat these foods, so then I'd eat a lot more than I felt comfortable with. But then the next day I'd feel disgusting with myself, and I would usually restrict and like skip breakfast and maybe even lunch, and I would usually go on really long runs or just work out excessively in order to make up for everything that I ate above my calorie threshold or whatever my threshold was. And this is a really, again, toxic mentality, because it perpetuates the whole disordered eating diet culture mentality. And whenever you do have these nights where you do drink or eat more, don't consider it an indulgence or a cheat day or a cheat night, because that associating those times with those terms that are have such a negative connotation in the world of wellness and dieting, it just perpetuates the whole mentality of like good versus bad, and being strong versus being weak, and having these moments of low willpower. And you can just tell yourself that we're going to eat how we normally eat today. We're not going to change anything. If we want to work out, we're going to let ourselves work out or move our body, but it doesn't need to be in an excessive way. And we don't need to only move our body because we feel the need to burn off something. We can just do it if we simply want to, but we shouldn't feel the obsessive need to go do it. And just reminding yourself, like, the feeling is temporary. Like, I still have those times where you might eat a little bit more than you're comfortable with, but it's just because everyone else is in the moment and it's like a fun night and you got some really good food from somewhere and you're all talking and debriefing the night or something, eating dumplings or whatever, and you might eat a little bit more than you felt comfortable with, and you do feel kind of gross the next day. But I just remind myself that every feeling is temporary and the discomfort will typically pass. And then you also kind of overinflate that whole feeling of feeling bloated or feeling like you think you gained X amount of pounds because you ate more that night, and your brain almost overinflates that whole idea, and then mentally it becomes a lot bigger than it really is, when really, like, one, your body fluctuates every single day and even throughout the day, and two, you're not going to gain weight from like one meal like that. Like, I don't know why I believed that for the longest time. but that's just not how eating or your body necessarily works. And then 3, it's gonna pass. Like, it's okay if you feel uncomfortable in that moment, but you'll feel okay in the next few days. And just remind yourself it's not something you should feel guilty about for having fun, and it's okay to not be perfect with your eating habits and to have these times where you may eat a little bit more than you typically do, where you eat past a comfortable level of fullness. And that's just part of being a human. Like, we're not perfect, and there's times where we do eat a little bit more because it's fun in the moment, or the food was really good, or it was the vibes were fun or something. And that's not something to feel guilty over or ashamed over. You shouldn't feel the need to punish yourself over these things. You're just simply allowed to go about your day and let it be, and just know the feeling's gonna pass, and it's not something to beat yourself up over. The 5th and final part of the cycle is when you're looking through photos the next day from the night before, and you pretty much hate all of them, and you end up posting the few quote-unquote good ones where you don't have like a double chin, you look curvy but not too curvy, and it's highlighting the parts of your body that you like, and it doesn't show the parts that you don't necessarily like or that the beauty industry says you shouldn't like, and your skin's glowing, none of your breakouts are showing, etc., etc. Photos are something I'm still working on, and the whole concept of not picking apart your appearance in it. And I was talking to my therapist about this and trying to think more about the moment that was taking place in the photo, and not just focusing on the 2D image that the camera captured, because I look back at photos now from even like a year ago, and I remember in the moment I absolutely hated it. And now I look back and I associate it with some sort of memory, whether it's good or bad or sad or whatever, but I associate it with a part of my life. And now when I look back at the photo several years later, I'm like, why was I so like angry at myself, or like I hated the way it looked and I was thinking about deleting it. I'm really glad I kept some of these, because I like looking back at the memory now and reminding myself of that point in my life. And also, you're so much more harsh with yourself in the moment. And I look back now a few years later and I'm like, why was I hyper fixating on these certain parts in the photo? Or why did I hate it so much? Like, I looked really cute, or I looked like really, like, why did I never think I should have posted this one, or it didn't look good enough to post? Like, you build it up in your head and you want it to be this perfect thing. I just remind myself in a few years, like, it's not going to be that deep. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. And it's the purpose of a photo is to capture a moment. It's not to look perfect or be perfectly quote unquote Instagrammable and literally look like you used AI for the whole thing, or like photoshopping the entire thing. Like, the original purpose of photos is to capture moments and, you know, save these memories for people to look at in like future generations or other people just to see, or for yourself to see in the future. And now when I take these photos, I'll wait 1 or 2 days before I even look at them, because I feel like in the initial moment or even a day or two after, you're still like so harsh with your mentality when judging these photos. So I wait a few days and then I look back and kind of process them, and I remind myself every time to not be incredibly hard on myself and to think about the moment the photo was taken in, what was going on, like reminding myself it doesn't need to look perfect. And I have a stomach roll showing, or cellulite, or you can see my breakout and my pimples, or maybe my stomach is sticking out a little bit more in this photo, or my waist or legs or hips look kind of weird. That's just part of having a normal body, and that's just being human, and you don't need to be perfectly posed like all these people we see on social media nowadays. We can't compare ourselves to those people, because there's just so much posing and so much editing and photoshopping that goes into all these things now. You just can't compare yourself to that. And I think that's also where a lot of the negative mindset stems from, because you're comparing yourself to these people who spend so, like, they probably take hundreds of photos only to get 1 or 2 solid ones, but it's like there's so much editing and posing and professional photography too that typically goes into this stuff, and you just can't compare like your own photos to that, because you're just going to feel like shit. And the purpose of a photo is to capture a moment, a memory. It's not to look perfect, and it's to look back on, like, in the future and remind yourself of that time in your life. Or at least for me, that's what the purpose of my camera roll is. And when I take photos of myself, and just don't be so hard on yourself. And I mean, it's hard to work on, and every time it's not always going to be that easy to look through and try to hold back these negative, harsh, critical comments. But again, just reminding yourself they don't need to be perfect, and you don't need to let it crush your self-esteem because you don't look like these wildly unrealistic, fabricated expectations of appearances. And while it's okay to be upset with photos, and you should feel your emotions and be compassionate with yourself when you're feeling down over this, you need to remind yourself that no one really cares that much about them, and photos aren't an accurate representation of you as a person. They don't capture your entire essence as a human being and what you look like to other people, the way you talk, walk, laugh at certain things, your energy. A picture can't capture all of the other things that make you so special and lovable to other people, so I think you should remind yourself of this more often. So I covered a wide range of topics in this one, so I hope it wasn't too all over the place. But to wrap up, I just want to say that I think this cycle persists because there's an ever-changing beauty standard that tells us we need to look a certain way in order to feel accepted, beautiful, and worthy. And it seems like it changes every few weeks, and it's just impossible to keep up with. And I just want to remind you that cellulite is normal, stretch marks are normal, breakouts are normal, not having a perfectly flat stomach is normal, and having a quote-unquote imperfect body is normal. And just because diet culture, the beauty industry, and then other pressures may say that because you have these things, you need to change something about yourself to get rid of them, I don't think you need to do anything at all. And they're just a part of being a human being, and you don't have to try to fix them or get rid of them. And you can simply just let it be and exist as part of you, and none of them make you any less deserving of love, respect, and attention from other people and even yourself. And your body is not meant to be perfect. It is meant to serve as a vehicle for your soul and allow you to simply live your life. And enjoying life is so much more important than stressing over fitting some ever-changing beauty standard and completely destroying your relationship with food to try to cope with the stress of trying to fit this standard and feel accepted by this culture. But you can choose to completely disagree with it and disengage from it, and you don't need to align with what it promotes. And the cycle that it creates, this going out cycle, I like to call it, is not normal at all, even though it's so normalized today in our culture. And you don't need to engage in it if it's not making you happy, or if you're mentally not doing too great with it. You can choose to completely, like I said, disengage. And if the people that you're currently surrounding yourself with do engage in this culture and they don't really feel the need to change it, or if you express that you'd prefer if they wouldn't talk about some of these things in front of you and they completely ignore that, then you have every right to set boundaries with these people and distance yourself from them if it's not making you happy and mentally safe. And you don't have to force yourself to go along with it and convince yourself that you think you're okay with it if you're not okay with it. And don't worry about other people judging you, because you need to do what works best for you. And if that's completely disengaging with this cycle, then that's what you should do. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. The next time you're planning on going out, make sure you pay more attention to how much fun you're having and take the focus away from your body, food you're consuming, how you think people are perceiving you. That's really trivial in the grand scheme of life. So just have fun, do your thing, and don't care so much about what other people think. So thank you again for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.